Hello. So this is my vocabulary list that I would be using. Decomposer, consumer, energy pyramid, food chain, carnivore, energy transfer, herbivore, and producer. So for my first activity, I would use decomposer, consumer, and producer. The students would watch a video about the ecosystem, and then they would need to identify the producers, the consumers, and the decomposers. So they would have to pull out those different things, and it could be, an animal, it could be a worm, any of those. They would have to pull those out and label them in the correct section. For my next two, I tried to group these up to what they went with best, and then at the end there would be like an overall vocabulary test. Is energy pyramid and energy transfer. Students will be given a tree, a grasshopper, a squirrel, a snake, and an owl. And then they need to create the food web and show the energy transfer and show the energy pyramid. And they could do this by using a poster board. They could do it on their computer. It depended on how they wanted to show their final presentation. But it would need to be something that the whole class could see. Next is the food chain. So this one's similar to the last one, but students pick an ecosystem of their choice and create a food chain with the animals and resources in them. So for example, they could choose to do like the rainforest, and they would need to pick at least 5 different animals or things in the rainforest and show the food chain. So who would be at the top and who would be at the bottom. And then they would need to explain why those things are where they are. So that would take some research. So that would be a more in-depth project, especially since they get to choose. I would make them go through me first to make sure their choices, appropriate, and try to get kids to do different ones than others so they're not all doing the rainforest or the desert. Lastly is my herbivore and carnivore. For these, students have to find the definition of both of these first. They will then give a group of animals, some that they're familiar with and some they may not be. So for example, they might be given a dog. Well, dogs can eat meat, dogs can kind of eat whatever, so they would go in the carnivore. Then they also might be given something that they're not really sure what it eats, and they'll have to do that research to find what those animals eat and then get them in the correct section. So I tried to group them up with what they went with best. And then at the end, for kind of the summative assessment, all of those activities would be formative. And then for the summative, they would be given a vocabulary test and try to it'd be short answer. And they would say like, what is a carnivore? Okay, they could put an animal that eats meat. What's an herbivore? An animal that only eats green leafy, grass or something. So it would be kind of more open-ended so that they could explain it. That also would be an easy way to modify. So if a student needed to have a scribe, they could explain to the scribe, or they could even come up and I would be like, can you tell me what the food chain is? And they can just talk through it, and then I can just mark it off to show that they know and that they understand what the food chain is. So those are my vocabulary list, and those are how I would use them. Thank you.